Hey guys, alright, so we're talking about 6.2b, and this is absolute value and identifying numbers and their opposites. But first we're going to start with absolute value. So what does absolute value mean? Well, actually it's the distance between a number and zero on a number line. So for example, if this was your house and each one of these is one block, so they talk about distance in terms of east and west, so you wouldn't say positive and negative, but we do. So we do positive and negative. But so for example, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is -1, this is -2, this is -3. But when we do absolute value, we don't see these negatives. We just talk about like if it's a distance. Okay, so let me explain this a little bit more. So for example, if I say, oh, my friend lives 1 block away from my house, it wouldn't make a difference whether it was this way or the other way. The distance is still 1 block away from my house. So the distance would, so you would say 1 block away. You wouldn't say 1 negative block away. So does that make more sense now? Okay, so for example, if my friend lived 3 blocks to the west, I would say the distance is 3 blocks. Distance is always positive. Alright, so let's talk a little bit more about that. So go ahead and make sure you have your book, and if you haven't written that down, pause the video, go get your book, go get your journal, write this down, and then grab your journal. Alright, here's my journal, and we're talking about 6.2b, and right now we're focusing on absolute value. And again, absolute value is the distance from 0 to a number. Okay, so absolute value is the distance from 0 to a number. And when we actually talk about this in real life, we talk about it like this: to the east, to the west, to the north, to the south. So for example, when you drive somewhere, you don't usually say, oh, I'm driving -3 miles west. I mean, -3 miles. You wouldn't say that. You would say, I'm driving 3 miles west. That's how we talk in the real world, and it makes sense that we talk that you have to understand this in for math. All right, so for example, if I have a number line like this, draw this in your journal, please. If I go too fast, you can go back and look at the video later. So you could just watch the video, and then you can go watch, and then pause it, and then come back and watch it again. Finish it, and watch it again. Alright, so for example, if I say, what is the absolute value of letter, let's pick one, let's say A, right there. What is the absolute value of letter A? Well, if I put A in absolute value, so see these lines, this means absolute value, and that means that anything that's inside is going to end up being positive. So this is a -2, so it becomes +2. just like that. We don't have to put the positive because those are regular whole numbers. Now, what about right here? If I asked you for the absolute value of b, well, you have to think about what is that number first. It has to be less than 2, but more than 1. And it's in the middle. So it's got to be 1 point something. Well, what's half of a dollar? 50 cents, right? So half would be 0.5. They just love to do that. So really, really think about those decimals in the middle. All right. So this is negative 1.5. And the absolute value of that, you write it down first. I'm going to give you a second to try it yourself. Remember, it's going to be a positive number. And it's 1.5. Yep. There you go, because it is 1.5, but remember, we don't talk about distance as, so what's the distance? So basically, really what this question is asking is, what is the distance from 0 to letter A? Really, right? They were asking you, what's the distance from 0 to A? Well, it was 2. So let's say this is blocks. This is 2 blocks away from my house. See, this is 0 would be my house. My friend lives 2 blocks away. Let's say this is east and this is west. And this is a good way to start thinking about stuff like this. All right, guys, let's look at C. Well, let's see where I'm going to put C. Right here. So absolute value of C. Really, remember, what I'm looking for is, what is the distance from 0 to letter C? So if I start right here and I'm looking here, well, how many blocks is that? That's just 1 block. And it makes sense, because if it starts as -1, it's going to become positive. It's +1. All right. Now, what about the numbers? Okay, I'm going to do one more on this side. Guys, look right here. So this is 0. This is -1. It's on the left side, so it has to be a negative. I know that. But it's not more than 1, so it has to be 0 point something. And remember what we said, half of a dollar. It's in the middle, so it's half. So it's just 0.5. So it's absolute value of D would be -0.5. And anything that's inside the lines has to become a positive. There. All right, what about the numbers on this side? What about F? Do you see that? It's on the positive side. So what happens? Does it become negative? No, it doesn't, because remember, distance is always positive. So the answer is +1. Now you do E by yourself. All right, remember, it's in between 0 and 1. So it's got to be more than 0, less than 1, and it's in the middle. Yep, it's 50 cents. That's right. So that's, remember, if it's already positive, it just stays positive. All right, that's absolute value. There's one more thing I want to tell you about absolute value. So if the negative is on the outside, for example, if I have a negative on the outside and then I have a negative on the inside, well, the inside changes to a positive number, but the negative doesn't go away. So that's just a -2 right there. What about if it's a positive? Well, that positive stays a positive, and the negative stays. Now, if the negative is on the inside, then this changes to a positive 2. Okay? So all these are negatives, and then this one's going to be a positive. Okay. That's absolute value. I got one. We're going to keep talking about absolute value. 6.2b, absolute value. And remember, absolute value is distance, and distance is always positive. Don't forget to put your name and the date. And I'm not going to put it because you're going to do yours in a different day. All right. So now let's look at this number line. Now, which point represents the value of, alrighty, so look at this. Which point represents the value of absolute value negative 15? Well, this is a negative on the inside, and we just talked about that. So this actually changes to a positive 15. So now we have to go look at where is it? Well, it's not one of these numbers, but we know 15 is in between 10 and 20. So it's going to be right here. So let's see what my letters are. All right. So now, which point or letter represents the value of that? Well, 15, it's a positive because it's absolute value, so it's always positive. So now I find it, and there it is. And so my letter is E. All right, let's keep going. Let's do some more of these. All right, so the absolute value of negative 5. All right, so that means the numbers are inside, so that means everything's going to be positive. So this is going to be a positive 5. So I go to where 5 is on the positive side. Remember, this is positive, this is negative. So here's 0, so then here's 10. So the middle of half of 10 is 5. So this one is D. All right. One more on the negative kind. See? It's going to be a positive 20. So that's going to be F. Now, what about this? What about a positive 5? If I ask you for a positive 5, what's going to happen here? Yeah, this is going to stay a positive. So that would be the one that's close to the 0, because, see, in between 0 and 10, that's going to be 5. Oh, no, but hold on. This is positive, so it's still got to be D. It has to still be D. So how come these are the same answer? This one's negative. This one's positive. Well, because the answers are both positive, and that's right, guys. It's D. Now, let's do one more of these. Absolute value of a positive 20. Yep, it's going to be a positive 20. So, I got to go to the positive side. So this is still F, just like this one. Remember? Because if it's inside the absolute value lines, it is positive. Okay, all right, guys. So that's it for that.